In the last video, I mentioned that corporate strategy seeks to address two major questions. Which markets should we compete in, and how should we organize ourselves? This video is going to focus on that second question, which is the question of organizational design. When we talk about organizational design, we're talking about three components of an organization. The structure of the organization, that's the way the work is actually orchestrated and how resources are distributed. So who does what and who has what. The culture of the organization, what are the shared values and norms, the soft connective tissue that holds the whole body of the organization together. And control. And control consists of both internal governance, it's the carrots and the sticks, as well as performance metrics and compensation. So how do we ensure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing? So Collis and Montgomery present a triangle of corporate strategy that is similar but not quite the same as this. They talk about coordination as opposed to lumping that under structure, and they don't bring up the concept of culture. So this diagram's a little bit of an amalgam from a few different authors. But many of the ideas of Collis and Montgomery are also kind of embedded in this same diagram here. So when we talk about organization as a source of competitive advantage, I want to harken back to the VRIO framework that we introduced a few weeks back. It's a framework, you may recall, that we use to assess whether a particular resource will lead to a sustained competitive advantage. And the first three of those letters in that acronym, VRI, are really related to the resource itself. The last one is O for organized. Is the company organized to capture value from a resource? And the fact that this is such an important question, you can't just possess a valuable, rare, difficult to imitate resource. The business itself has to be structured in a way that enhances the value of that resource. That is part of the reason why we spend so much time talking about organizational design as a strategy issue. So Collis and Montgomery, again, take a resource-based view of the firm. So everything that they kind of talk about in terms of firm structure or organizational design kind of follows based on the nature of resources. Are they generalized or specialized? And you can also insert capabilities instead of resources up there. So is a skill or capability generalized or specialized? Do you have particular expertise in a very particular aspect of manufacturing semiconductors? Or do you have a general management capability? You're excellent at soft skills and working with people. That would be a more generalized capability, for example. So following from that, the scope of your business should be based on whether your resources are specialized or generalized. What coordination mechanisms you use. So Collis and Montgomery talk about transferring versus sharing knowledge across sub-business units. Control systems, there's the difference between financial controls, so that's setting KPIs or performance metrics and expecting businesses to hit them, versus operating controls, which are more common with startup businesses or businesses where financial performance is a little less easily predicted or quantifiable. And it also relates to the size of the corporate office or head office. Porter, on the other hand, didn't have as much to say about the organizational design of a company. And this isn't surprising because Porter's background, again, is in industry economics. And so he's much more focused on external characteristics of a market and much less focused on the internal design of an organization. Vermeulen raises an interesting critique, though, because he's very dismissive of the ability to configure a business in a way where the organizational design itself leads to competitive advantage. He says this is all kind of hogwash, and instead we should have a much more practical, pragmatic view of why businesses might be diversified or compete in multiple industries and what the role of a parent office might be. He says a parent office really can only do three things effectively: serve as a portfolio manager, an internal board of directors, or an in-house bank. And the reason why Vermeulen argues a parent company might be, or a head office might be better at that than having an external portfolio manager, an external board of directors, or an external bank play those roles is really centers on information asymmetry. Basically, the parent company knows these businesses better and thus can act more efficiently, where an external actor wouldn't have the same level of information and therefore won't be as effective in any of these roles. To talk about what is meant by portfolio manager, I'd like to bring up this BCG matrix that's fallen out of favor, but this used to be a very common way to think about a business, that a business shouldn't just be in a single product market. Instead, a business should have offerings across multiple product markets, in some ways to hedge its bets. So they talk about having not just stars, which are products in markets where the company has both relatively high market share and the market itself is growing quite quickly, but also having some question marks. So some of those moonshot gambles like Alphabet has in markets where they maybe have lower market share, but the growth rate is quite high. So that's placing a little bit of a bet on a future prospect for growth. There's one bucket that BCG does not like. It's the dogs, low growth markets with low market share. Otherwise, they also say there's some room for having cash cows, which are high market share, low growth, mature markets. So Vermeulen, when he talks about a parent company serving as a portfolio manager, basically when a parent company has to decide how to allocate resources across businesses, they are more effective at doing that than an external portfolio manager or investor might be able to be, because they understand both the market share and the prospects for the markets may be better than an external investor would. You may recall Michael Porter says or reemphasizes that external investors can diversify their own portfolios, so they don't really need businesses to do it for them. So I think Vermeulen is just adding one more voice to the debate around what is the purpose of diversification and what's a good justification for it, and how this ties into organizational design. From Vermeulen's perspective, a head office doesn't need to focus on the nature of their resources and then decide whether they need to be large or small based on this and decide on appropriate coordination mechanisms. He has a somewhat limited view of what a parent office or a head office can offer its constituent business units.